Hi folks, happy Friday, welcome to the weekend. I trust that you've had a good week. And let's take a look at what I've been reading during the week. I started with White Queen by Gwyneth Jones, and this is actually a book that I started before the end of March. That was on my March TBR list and I didn't quite get through it. And I did find the first 150 pages, the first half really, a little bit hard going. Very little was explained, there was no exposition, she was all show and no tell. And even then, only in snippets. And, you know, to be honest, I've DNF'd books for less than that, but I was sufficiently engaged with this to keep pushing on. And I think my persistence was amply rewarded in the end. You have to forgive my voice, by the way, which is on the verge of giving out. You know, we'll see how we get on. So in this book, the Aleutians, so-called, have arrived some time ago, actually, and they're called the Aleutians because they first landed on the Aleutian Islands, just off the coast of Alaska. And for a while, they've been hiding in plain sight with some mental manipulation involved. They're telepathic, sort of. They seem to be able to communicate with each other without speaking, which appears to be telepathy, but could just as easily be a combination of intent and body language, colouring, whatever it might be. But to us poor old humans, it seems like telepathy. And because they seem to be telepathic, we're worried collectively that they can read our minds. The protagonist is a chap called Johnny, and he's a journalist of sorts. And he's been expelled from his native USA because he's infected, unlucky for him, with a virus which attacks the organic material, which is at the core these days of all modern processors. From his perspective, there doesn't seem to be much evidence of there actually being a risk of transmission. But nonetheless, he's been deported, and thus he remains. And he's living in a West African backwater. He's been meeting a lady called Agnes, who he now suspects might actually be an alien observer, one of the Aleutians. And being a journalist, he smells the story of a lifetime, potentially his meal ticket back to the US to fame and riches and to be reunited with his family. Braemar Wilson is an older woman. She's a bit cynical and also a journalist. And she buddies up with Johnny, using her feminine wiles to seduce him, potentially to steal his story, we're led to believe, or maybe she has some other nefarious plan. The setting for White Queen is interesting. We're in a nearish future where something bad happened in 2004. The book was written in 1991, remember. So 2004 was definitely the future then. But anyway, back in 2004, something's happened, something bad. It's referred to only obliquely, and it's colloquially known as the 04. And we surmise via the occasional snippet that Japan has been destroyed by some severe tectonic and seismic activity of some kind. And it has sunk beneath the waves, with presumably the death of millions. And what remains of the Japanese diaspora are now making the best of it in China. The Aleutians, in their non-hierarchical and non-binary glory, are misinterpreted by humanity in general as telepathic, immortal conquerors, although in reality they're just simple traders from a generation ship. I thought that the Aleutians were very aliens. They're humanoid, yes, and capable of appearing pretty human-like, and yet they have a cavity where their nose should be. They don't have any grand plans for world domination, it seems, but they do want to trade their alien goods and get rich in the process. They misunderstand nearly everything about humans and their society, the politics, and even basics like gender. To the Aleutians, male and female humans are two different species, and existing, as they see it, in a state of perpetual Cold War that could blow up at any point. We just don't make sense of them at all. They get confused about our governmental structures, assuming that a world conference on women's affairs is in fact the functioning seat of power for the whole world, inadvertently fueling some kind of gender war between the oppressed female workers of Asia and the patriarchy or whatever. Misinterpretations between the species abound, escalating into terrorism and violence as the story progresses, both sides acting on flawed assumptions. Gwyneth Jones effectively uses the Aleutians as a mirror, a vehicle to explore how we humans perceive other, reflecting our biases on themes such as gender and communication and identity. There's a rather uncomfortable scene involving some alien on human sexual assault, and not the usual kind that you might expect, with some very alien aspects to it. I like the dynamic between Johnny and Braemar, their relationship founded initially on a deceit, but worth much more than that by the end of the book. I thought that she did a good job with the Aleutians. They're very well done. They're very off-kilter. And as I said, I did find the first half of the book also quite hard going. There's no quarter given. An effort is required on the part of the reader, I think, to piece things together. It's a tale of misunderstandings, incorrect assumptions, misinterpretations and miscommunications. I think if you liked China Miéville's Embassy Town, which dealt with some similar themes, then I think this would also appeal, albeit requiring a bit of patience to get into. There are two further books to complete the trilogy, North Wind and The Phoenix Cafe. I think certainly the third one is set some hundreds of years after the first one. So despite White Queen being a bit of a slog at first, I will definitely be reading the following books as well. Next up is Push, a novella by Dave Hutchinson, and in this case, not wishing to show off, is actually a numbered limited edition of just 150 copies from Newcom Press. And this is signed by the man himself and Eric Brown, actually, who did the introduction, signed by both of them. And at the risk of being a dreadful name dropper, if I remember right, this copy was actually sent to me by Dave himself, along with another of his books. It turned out that the Push didn't actually sell that well at the time it was published, and Dave was offered the remaining stock, rescued from being pulped, effectively, and he had a couple knocking around that he was pleased to send me. So that's excellent. The Push is the colloquial name for an FTL propulsion system, and the early versions are pretty clunky with severe time dilation effects, and then they improve, getting faster and faster with less marked time dilation effects. And the stories are based around those time dilation effects. Friendships are tested, relationships are doomed, and Reeth, the planet of the piece, has been colonised by a group of cheery billionaires who have further added to their coffers by playing with time dilation and compound interest. Refreshingly, these are not particularly sinister billionaires. They seem to be largely good actors, but we'll see. The colony has been set up outside the auspices of the UN Space Agency, which is the effective governing body of the Earth and all of its other colony worlds. Things have gone well on Reeth. The colony is rich, it's clean, it's tidy and successful, but there's a problem, a foundational sin, if you like, chickens, for which are very much now coming home to roost. The truth of which, if it emerges, will bring the UN Space Agency down on Reeth, and our friendly billionaires will lose control of the planet. For what's quite a short book, is under 100 pages, Dave Hutchinson does some interesting stuff, I think. He explores the issues presented by continued developments in FTL drives. The more recent spaceships are capable of much faster travel, and then waves of colonisation and expansion that have been planned earlier are overtaken. What do you do when you get to your destination and there have already been 3 waves of colonisation that have beaten you to it? The time dilation issues are interesting too. I thought our protagonist experiences quite a bit of whiplash on returning to Reeth. From his perspective, mere months or a handful of years have passed, but on the planet, it's over 200 years, and things and the people have moved on. If you add to all that the local aliens who have proved to be more than just dinner, there's a lot going on. It is under 100 pages, so it's quick work. I read it in a single sitting. Sadly, being a numbered limited edition, it's actually quite difficult to get hold of. There was an ebook, but I think even that's tricky to find. You can still get copies of hardback, and the paperback is available too. That could be had second-hand for about £25, but that is a lot to spend on what is a slender novella. See if you can track down the ebook. Next, I read Captive Universe by Harry Harrison. This was originally published in 1970. The Sphere edition first published in 1972, and this is a reprint from 1978. Chimal is an Aztec, and he's living in a remote valley, and there are gods and sacrifices and pyramids, and corn is grown, things are made, food is eaten. But beware the dangers of the snakes and scorpions. It's a pretty restrictive society. The population is passive and not terribly bright, but they live their lives. And there are hints, though, that Chimal might be different, possibly the result of a forbidden union. He's inquisitive, he explores where he shouldn't explore, and gets in a lot of trouble as a result. But he finds that there's more to this world than is apparent to the simple Aztecs of the village. Through gradual hints and Chimal's exploring, we learn, as he learns, just what those differences are and what they mean for the villagers. It's difficult to know what to do about spoilers. The book is over 50 years old, and there's maybe even a clue in the title, but I'm wary of revealing too much more. I went in knowing the central conceit, so I knew where it was headed, and that didn't present a huge problem for me, but I do think it would work better if it's possible for you to go in blind and read this book. I like the way that Harry Harrison reveals to both Chimal and us the various truths, many of which Chimal fails to comprehend initially. Words are mangled or misheard until meanings are clarified. And Chimal finds that his life in the village is under observation, but by whom and with what purpose? Who is the mysterious grand designer, and why do they exert so much power and influence? It's under 200 pages, and I burned through it pretty fast. I've read quite a few books in the little subgenre into which this fits, and I've enjoyed this one too. Very briefly then, some channel updates. Subscriptions are at 5516, which is up 178 since the last one of these a couple of weeks ago. So if you're one of those 178, or if you've stumbled across my channel for the first time today, then a huge welcome to you. I'm John, and I focus on collecting, reading and chatting nonsense about science fiction books, old and new. Comment of the week this week was from Marcus Mattingly, my new best friend, who says that I'm such a pleasant guy to listen to. Oh, well, if you say so, Marcus, who am I to argue? Thank you to Marcus for taking the time to leave a comment, and to all of you who've done the same. I do really appreciate it. Let's take a quick look at what was on the channel this week. On Tuesday, there was a collecting update on the Broderick and De Filippo 101 best novels list. I've been going a bit crazy over the last 6 months, and that video took the form of kind of a compilation haul video, as all of the books that I featured had already appeared in haul videos in dribs and drabs over the last 6 months. And that was a lot for last week. As many of you know, I've been busy for the last couple of weeks either preparing for or attempting to jog slowly across the north of England from coast to coast. And that didn't quite pan out the way that I'd hoped, as I said earlier. But nonetheless, that means that I've not had a great deal of time for YouTube. On the book buying front, since last we spoke, despite being busy with that, I have been able to buy a few books. There was my birthday at the end of March, and several books resulted from that. Plus, I've been a little bit acquisitive online and done a bit of fruitful book browsing whilst I was up north in some used bookshops. And I got home yesterday from my travels to find a few deliveries too, including a wonderful first edition that I've been after for a while. That was a birthday present. And another limited edition short story collection to complete my Paul Macaulay collection. To the to be hauled pile currently stands at over 45 books. And before you start jeering at my shelf space issues, I have also sold a similar number of books. So arguably I'm at least not making it worse. That's what I'm telling myself anyway. Let's take a quick look ahead at what will be on the channel. I'd better record that book haul today, so I think you can expect to see that on Sunday. And I think that will be a good one. There's some interesting books, and I think it's quite the variety pack. Without making too many commitments, during the week there may be a themed video. I'm actually not sure what yet. Unusually for me, I haven't got anything actually planned out, although there are plenty of ideas that I could choose from. It could be, I could focus on a decade, maybe the 1950s, or it could be a theme, time travel perhaps. Or books involving AI, that being topical these days. I'll see which of those takes my fancy. Hopefully I can make up my mind soon and get that done during the week. But if not, then it will probably appear next weekend. Looking ahead longer range, it will soon be my 2nd anniversary as a YouTuber, my chaniversary, if you will. And I'll probably do a video, or maybe even 2. One, I think, will just be a straight up channel update with some stats and highs and lows and plans and so on. And then the other one, if I do it, if I'm brave enough, will be a live stream, a kind of ask me anything type video where you'll be able to put questions in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them. Live and dangerous. That would be my first live stream. So that could be tumbleweeds, or it could be quite lively. We will just have to see. More information on that to come nearer the time. What will I be reading in the coming week? I'm going to read The Carpet Makers by Andreas Eschbach, which I had on my TBR a couple of months back and I never quite got around to. So I want to make sure I definitely do that this month. So that'll be the first one I tackle. Then I'm going to read Marcher by Chris Beckett, which should be quick work, I think. His writing style is uncomplicated and it's quite easy to read. So I should be looking forward to that. That's not a time travel. That's a parallel worlds tale. I'm looking forward to it. And then if I finish both of those, then I shall give this Heinlein book a go, Starman Jones. Because I'm not running at the moment, I'm recovering from the 120k that I did do. I won't actually get a chance to listen to much in the way of audiobooks, at least for the next week or maybe even 2. So I'm mostly going to be restricted to physical books. I have, after these 3, I have 5 more on my pile, 3 of which are quite slender. So with more than 2 weeks as we sit here left of April. So I should be okay with what I had planned to read on the physical book front. Anyway, my voice is going to go, so let's leave it there. As always, thank you for watching. Have a wonderful weekend, and until next time, goodbye for now.